And the way the grid lines up for this 40-minute race, we'll see Alex Taylor start from pole position. He was roughly 2 seconds quicker than Matt Spark this morning in qualifying. Tony Blake lines up on the second row with Patrick Scharfiger back for more action in the number 99 machine on the outside of row 2, and Richard Harman with Roger Hamilton on the third row of the grid. Then we move our way back to the fourth row, where we'll see David Whelan in his Porsche. He'll be joined by James Neal alongside in the number 11 machine. The fifth row is going to see number 2, which is Richard Hayes, and 91 Hugh Gurney back out for a second piece of action for today. And then row 6, Tom Barley and that of Ed Harvey. The seventh row of the grid will see Chris Boone joined by David Sharp alongside. The eighth row is going to see Jeff Beale and Darren Claydon. The ninth row will then have Luke Plummer and Stuart Jeffcoat. And the 10th row will see Ray Barrow, a long-time runner within the Classic Sports Car Club, and that of Ben Richardson. On to the 11th row, we'll then have that of Metin Yilmaz, joined on the outside of row 11 by Jake Severs. The 12th row is going to see Chris Prudham and Graham Smith in the number 12 car, and the 13th row of the grid will have that of James Palmer and Rob Hardy back out again. This is what we see in the Classic Sports Car Club. They love that racing, so they'll get out as much as they possibly can. The 14th row of the grid is going to be the Lawrence and Richard Coppock car with Matthew Lewis alongside. The 15th row is going to be Ben Cater with Josh Smith alongside. And then further back on the 16th row of the grid, we'll have Ryan Charters and Amir Naran. The 17th row is going to be Brian Richardson and Alan Drain. The 18th row, Ryan Moon and Colin Claxton. The 19th row will then see Martin Reynolds and Paul Last, before we head towards the back of the grid with Stephen Gilby and Les Conway, and towards the rear, 41st place for Paul Linfield.
Another colossal grid of cars that are out there, and really looking forward to this one. It's always good to see the TVR Tuscan Challenge cars back out there, and I think sometimes we do look through rose-tinted glasses about previous championships and eras of motorsport, and so many people wax lyrical about the TVR Tuscan Challenge, and having been there at the time when it was running, I still think it's one of the best domestic championships, one make we ever had in the UK, and it's still great to see, you know, here we are 30 years later still seeing these Tuscan Challenge cars out.
Indeed, it's found a new home, hasn't it? We don't really have the TVR Challenge anymore. As you said, the Tuscan Challenge departed probably through the late 90s, somewhere around there. So yeah, to be able to come and race in the future classics and the modern classics, we see those cars that we adored back in the day racing in period, which is great to see. A lot of Porsches on the grid as well, which we'll see, of course, in the modern classics part of this race. But again, loads of variety and lots of great racing to look forward to across the next 40 minutes.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. Looking forward to seeing how Ray Barrow at the wheel of his thundering great big Camaro copes with some of the heavy stopping areas, and what his brakes might be like at the end of 40 minutes of racing here at Silverstone. That is going to be a rocket ship in a straight line. He's a long way down the grid, but Ray Barrow, what's he, 19th on the grid at the wheel of 5.7 litre Chevy Camaro. But it's the 5 litre Tuscan that starts from pole position in the hands of Alex Taylor. Matt Spark at the wheel of the Porsche GT3 that lies alongside. We've got 40 minutes on the clock. There will be a mandatory pit stop in the middle of this race. It opens after 10 minutes, closes for the final 15, and again 90 seconds all of the cars have to be in from pit in to pit out. So you don't remain stationary for that period of time. That's the period you have to be in the pit lane area. Lights are about to go out. We're away and racing with the Modern Classics and Advantage Motorsport Future Classics. Alex Taylor leads the charge. Crumbs, we're 5 wide over the start-finish line there. Good job, there's plenty of room at Silverstone, but there's not quite as much room as everybody wanted up at Copse Corner. And I'm afraid, whilst we can't see it, we can see lots of debris up at Copse Corner, which suggests we've got at least a couple of cars have come together. Now, who is going to come out in the lead of the race, I don't know, but there's bits of debris flying, and it is not from the front of the cars, because Matt Spark is through and into the lead of the race. Alex Taylor is second, and that's Patrick Scharfegger that's there in third place. It's Richard Hayes that's there in fourth place, and I can't at the moment quite pick out whom we're missing from the front end. Tony Blake didn't come through, Richard Harman didn't come through, so possibly those two. Yeah, lots of smoke, lots of debris, wasn't there, that we saw out of picture there, but they've all seemingly made it through, bar maybe one. There's some damage there as well on one Porsche. Is that David Whelan's Porsche? Yeah, damage on Tony Blake's Tuscan as well on the left front, isn't there? Yeah. So there's some battle-scarred cars. I think one maybe ended up in the gravel. There were some gravel tyres there, and is that one of the Camaros with some problems as well?
slow towards the back. So yeah, everyone just kind of tiptoeing around this first lap just to make sure everything is okay with the car, but not the start some of them would have wanted. But as you said, some good starts elsewhere, and one of them that I did see was Rob Hardy. That's who made it 5 wide across the line. He made some good progress on the outside down towards Copse Corner.
Yeah, if the gap's there, keep your foot in, don't lift. Yeah, I think we're going to see destined for the pit lane Tony Blake at the end of this lap. His TVR started 3rd position on the grid, but it's tumbled down through the Ure, and that's the car that's carrying front left damage following whatever happened out of sight at Copse Corner there. So it is Porsche that leads. Matt Spark leading the way at this stage. We're looking at battles going on further down through the order, which is David Whelan's Porsche, the glorious looking 993 RSR Cup car. Cars queuing up behind him though, including Darren Claydon is the next of those. You've got the Jaguar X K8 of long-time Jaguar racer sitting right behind him. Chris Boone, the man from Coventry as well. So good fights all the way down through the order in the early stages.
Yeah, indeed there are. So the front runners work their way safely through down towards Brooklands for the first time of asking. We will see if anyone does head for the pit lane at the end of this first lap. That will give us indications to if anyone is carrying any severe problems with their cars. But as it stands, they're still racing as hard as they possibly can. I think that's the Jake Severs, isn't it? BMW trying to go round the outside there of the Porsche. Not quite going to work. Going to run out of road just about on the exit of the corner. But Jake Severs will continue that battle going across the line as they run side by side still as they complete the first lap. And it may just go to the advantage there of the Porsche, I think.
Only just though, I think. Thundering over the start-finish line comes the great big Ford Mustang Mark 1 of Martin Reynolds. I think that was the car that you maybe thought was slowing down towards the end of the straight up towards Stowe Corner, the hangar straight. But I think everybody has continued round. I think the only car we're going to see come in the pit lane is the TVR Tuscan that I was expecting the arrival of, Tony Blake. I think other than that, whatever happened up at Copse Corner, everybody else largely got away with it. It might just have been a bit of contact and a spin in the middle of the pack, and thankfully nothing else. But there is one car that's just speared right of our screen there. Just saw it out the corner of my eye, spearing right, and that is David Sharp at the wheel of the Lotus that's had a moment. So the Lotus Elise Series 1 just exited stage left there, but thankfully, such is the runoff at Silverstone, he was able to gather it up.
Yeah, no harm, no foul, which is good. Ed Harvey's making ground here. That's that green Porsche, the green and grey Porsche, which is carving its way nicely through the field at the minute. So Ed Harvey now taking another position from one of the older Porsches as they work their way down in towards the Vale Club part of the circuit. And the car it was passing was Darren Claydon, and now Jake Severs tries to get to the inside, which there's a slight bit of contact there, but will Jake Severs still take the place away through the right-hander on towards the Lewis Hamilton straight? Well, he briefly does, but again with the power there of Darren Claydon, I think that will just see the Porsche stay ahead down towards Abbey.
Yep, so he just manages to hang on to it. Now they need to be careful because they've got the Talbot Sunbeam Lotus of Jeff Beale queuing up behind them. Then you've got Chris Boone's Jaguar as well that next up as well, and Chris Boone is feeling the pinch and is under a little pressure from a Porsche that's behind him. That's a spin, and that's the Marcotte that's had an off. So that is Matthew Lewis that gets it pointing in the right direction, eventually gets the thing fired up, and he will continue on his way. But the 3.9 litre Rover engined Marcus Manchula losing places there.
Yeah, it certainly is a magnificent looking car as well, is that Marcos, which will work its way back onto the circuit. There's more moves being made down at the end of the Wellington Straight once again. This is the Porsche versus Toyota battle at the minute as it turns its way in towards the final couple of corners. But again, you look through the field, there is a battle everywhere you seem to look at the minute. And again, it's making progress in the early stages because that's where you're going to find the majority of the field bunched together. So the more you can do now, the easier possibly it will become for you or your teammate in the second half of the race.
Yeah, that Porsche was James Neal who started that car, and he's coming under pressure from the Toyota, which is in the hands of Richard Hayes that sits behind. So that is going to be for 4th and 5th position. Just off that was going to be the car of Richard Harmon. His 944 Turbo was looking to try and join in the fun as well. So it's one good thing about such big grids that we always have within the Classic Sports Car Club is that there is always somebody to race with, is there not? And case in point, doesn't matter whether you're at the front or whether you're at the back, there's largely always going to be somebody that you can have a little bit of a play with, and you can just see as all of the cars sweep their way through Maggotts and Beckett's and out of Chapel Curve and onto the Hangar Straight. They're all within touching distance of someone else. So down the Hangar Straight, 4th place car, Neil Harvey, up the wheel of the Porsche, look in his mirrors, who's still with him? It's going to be the Toyota in the hands of Richard Hayes.
Yeah, certainly is, and there's a few more now starting to queue up behind here. So Richard Harmon is there, Roger Hamilton is there as well. You've got Tom Barley and Hugh Gurney all within touching distance. So 5 or so cars starting to line up now behind the Neil and the Harvey car as they turn their way back into the left flick of Vale, back in towards Club Corner. But none of them on this occasion, as of yet, making any moves. So they'll sit there patiently for a little while. But as we said, they want to try and make up as many positions as they possibly can in these early stages, as Roger Hamilton now takes his way down in that Ginetta in towards the right-hander of Abbey Corner. And as he does that, we can tell you that Alex Taylor is still your race leader. The gap last time through 2.6 seconds. And it is potentially looking to grow by another second or so by the end of this lap, as well as the Ginetta again looking for a move on Richard Harmon, but Roger Hamilton can't quite squeeze away through on the inside, so instead he tries for the outside. Both of them run wide, and that will let surely Tom Barley through in the BMW, which it has done. So Tom Barley there, the lucky man to get through, gains 2 positions and now sees him up into 6th place.
Yeah, Ginetta G20, still a good car to see out there. Little 1.8 litre Ford C-Tech engine machine. Used to, again, have a very competitive one-make championship for it in the UK that always used to support the likes of the British GT Championship. Alex Taylor with the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 22.951, is not easing his pace. I gather the contact at the start of the race might well have been between Tony Blake and Alex Taylor, but if it was Alex Taylor, there's no ill effects or obvious signs of any damage to that car. And I can also report that the Mustang Mark 1 of Martin Reynolds, sadly, I gather, is out of the race as well with problems. But this 4th, 5th place battle heads through Copse Corner. Then we get the battle of the Porsche, still busy squabbling away with Tom Barley. The Ginetta's dropped to the tail end of that little field. Up towards us now comes Ed Harvey in the Porsche. That's the black car with the Dayglow green flashes to it. Now, it's good to see James Neal, who shares this car again with Neil Harvey, the white Porsche, back out again. The 964 they've competed in for a very, very good number of years, always sharing the car. We used to see them at every single classic sports car club round. We've done less so over the course of the last few seasons, so it's good to see them back, but they've got their work cut out. The flame-spitting Toyota of Richard Hayes is having a good run as they come down the Hanger Straight, but he'll have the outside line for Stowe.
Certainly will, and to be fair, towards the second half of that straight, James Neal gets a second burst of power, so that keeps him ahead just about on this occasion. But Richard Hayes again through the more positive parts of the circuit for him will try and get his way through. It's not through here down towards Vale and Club, but definitely on the acceleration part of the circuit, it is where Richard Hayes seems to be better off here. But James Neal holding on nicely for the time being. They've just broke away slightly now from the new 6th place car of Tom Barley. So after that move he did about a lap ago to gain 2 positions, Tom Barley now setting his sights on the next 2 cars. But as we said, he's got some ground to try and close down first off. Still behind Tom Barley is Richard Harmon. He works his way through very shortly with Hugh Gurney and Roger Hamilton still on the tail of them at the minute in 8th and 9th places. But as it stands, Richard Hayes, after that little bit of a go he had down the Hanger Straight, has not really amounted to much over the rest of this lap.
Now these cars that are coming round here will not be able to pit at the end of this lap, because I don't quite think the pit window will be open for them when they get towards the decision of having to head in towards pit lane entry. We're 30 seconds away from that at the moment, but any cars towards the tail end of the field would be able to pit, because we would be into the pit window at that point. Alex Taylor, the race leader, just keeps going faster and faster and faster with a 2 minute 21.966 from him that time through. So the lead advantage will stretch to beyond what it was, which was 5.1 seconds first to second place. Matt Sparks still sitting there in second place at the wheel of the Porsche. And in fact, the gap is 5.1 seconds this time through, actually. And we've also got Jake Severs jinking out from behind the Porsche to try and squeeze his way through. Very decisive move. Is it quite going to work for the Beamer? We can't quite tell. We'll have to pick up on that as they come over the start-finish line.
Ray Barrow there, making his way through another position as well. So that should see Ray possibly into 17th position by the end of this lap. But Jake Severs has had that car in every position so far in this race. Has been over the curbs, down the inside of cars, through the outside, and he's still not yet quite through, is he? Because he sits there at the minute behind the Porsche, still that of Darren Claydon, the car that goes solo for this one. But Jake Severs, again, is hassling this Porsche like nobody's business as they work their way down towards Maggots for what's going to be now the 5th time of asking. But good going here for Jake Severs. Hopefully he can pass that car over in good time to Matthew Irons for the second half of the race.
Yeah, Matthew Irons, who's been racing this car as Darren Clayton has a big wiggle at the wheel of the Porsche. He's still trying to gather it up all the way through Beckett, but yeah, Jake Sever's able to pounce there, and he will hand that car over to Matthew Irons, who's been racing this car for donkey's years, this yellow BMW. I gather it is his last season of racing. He's going to retire from racing at the end of this year, and if that's the case, thanks for keeping us entertained over the years, Matt. Himself and Jake been racing together for a good number of years, but yeah, he's decided to hang up his crash helmet at the end of this year, which will be a shame to not, because it's one of those cars that as soon as you see the car, Matt, you know the driver name instantly. You don't have to think about it.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll be a sad situation to see Matthew go at the end of this season, but hopefully it's a good year for Matthew and Jake together. At the minute, not doing a bad job as they sit ahead of the mighty Jaguar, which works its way through at the minute, and I think that's made fairly good progress, hasn't it? That's normally in the hands of Chris Boone, which it is again for this year. So 13th on the grid was Chris Boone, just dropped down to 15th place, so he's lost a couple of positions over the first few laps, but hopefully make some good progress as we head in towards the second half of the race very shortly. Meantime, this battle which continues on for 4th place, nothing has really changed here because it's still James Neal that heads that fight with Richard Hayes in the Toyota in 5th place, and Tom Barley now has caught up with those 2 cars ahead, so it's a 3-way tussle. I think. I don't think there's any more in there just yet. No, just I could be wrong. I think Richard Harmon is catching and Roger Hamilton is almost there as well. So we've got 5 potentially here for 4th place.
Yeah, it's good value, isn't it, this one? Yeah, so 3 cars really for 4th position, but another couple wanting in on the fun as well, with Richard Harmon ever closing up at the wheel of the Porsche and Roger Hamilton at the wheel of the Ginetta G20, just that little bit further behind. And they're all cars that will excel at different parts of the circuit. You know, in a straight line, the Porsche and the Toyota are a match for each other, as this time Richard Hayes looks to have a run on James Neal. Can he squeeze the Toyota up the inside at Copse? No, he can't. So he's got to back out of an ever decreasing gap, and then that slows his momentum and allows Tom Barley to close in. But through the twiddly parts, the car that's at the tail end of this little quintet, the little red Ginetta, that's going to have the advantage. It hasn't got the power, it's got the handling.
Certainly has, and of course with these cars ahead of them continuing to squabble as well, it brings them all into the mix. And I think now Roger Hamilton looking to make the move on Richard Harmon. Can't quite do it through the corners, but if he gets a good run through on the exit of Chapel and on towards the Hangar Straight here, it could be a move to be made for Roger on Richard by the time they get down towards the right-hander of Stowe. But again, it seems that Richard Hayes has that good ability to get out the corner, but as soon as they hit the bridge and go under it, it seems that the second burst of power comes from James Neal's car. So again, he's doing well, but this is going to be a very tired James Neal, I think, at the end of this stint, and he'll be quite relieved, I think it's fair to say, to hand that car over to Neil Harvey to have a go at defending from possibly Richard Hayes in the next part.
Yeah, it'd be even tougher for Richard Hayes because he's behind the wheel for the whole thing. He can't jump out of the car and hand it over to a fresher driver. He's just got to keep pressing on and seeing what he might be able to do. Now, the other interesting thing, of course, is with the change for the regulations that we've seen for a lot of the Classic Sports Car Club series for this year. It used to be pit stops as quick as you can do them in a lot of series. Most of them now are 1 minute and 30 seconds from pit in to pit out, so you can't gain or lose anything in the pit stops. In theory, you're all at the same advantage or disadvantage of each other.
It's making sure you get there bang on 90 seconds, not a second or 2 seconds too early or too late. So you've got to be on the money there. So this might be the defining factor, especially for this first meeting of the year.
Yeah, we've not seen any cars opt for the pit lane as yet. The window's been open around about 4.5 minutes. It opens after the first 10 minutes of the race and closes for the final 15 minutes of the race. So they've got still another 10 minutes to come in and take the pit stops, but no takers just as yet. A little bit of smoke in the background, and that is a smoky Porsche, I'm afraid to say. It looks as though James Neal has been wringing the neck of that Porsche. He's been trying so hard to stay ahead of the Toyota, but something, I'm afraid to say, has given up on the 964, and he'll be destined for the pit lane. That does not look anything other than maybe bodywork. I think it's been contact. Yeah, there's been an incident, hasn't it? It's contact to the rear of that Porsche. Maybe the Toyota's clobbered him.
The exhaust is hanging off, isn't it, as well as the bumper there. So yeah, there's been something that's happened for James Neal. Unfortunately, he comes in very slowly to the pit lane. I think he was possibly holding up a car which was also coming into the pit lane as well. So James Neal will go past our commentary position. There is damage on the right front of Richard Hayes' car there. So I think 2 and 2 together, you get your answer.
Yeah, such a shame, because that was such a good battle between the pair of them, but clearly, yeah, they've tripped over each other, and that's such a shame that both cars then head into the pit lane with damage.
Boone go through once more. That looks a little bit smoky, but I think that's absolutely fine for the Jaguar as he works his way down through Copse Corner. Is that Darren Claydon behind him as well? Yes, so this is a Porsche Jaguar battle for 13th and 14th place. Good progress still being made there by Jake Severs. He was up quite a few positions on the first few laps. He's made up 7 places from where he started here, so Jake Severs doing really well in his position at the minute. Sits there in what's going to be 15th place as we now look towards the Porsche in the pit lane. So that is James Neal, and Neil Harvey was looking to get aboard that car, but as it stands, I don't think they'll be heading back out, because unless they've got some gaffer tape to hold that in place and also put the exhaust back into position, that's not going to be good enough for the scrutineers to send it back out, is it?
No, sorry sight that, isn't it, as it sits there in the pit lane. Fellow Porsche racer there just inspecting the damage and kicking parts of the body, but that's well folded in, isn't it, that rear quarter panel, and that is going to take a large old crowbar just to even get that out, and then you've got the exhaust hanging off still, Matt, as you say, so I think the scrutineers would want to satisfy themselves that all is well. However, I did notice that James Neal was pointing himself in the general direction of the Toyota, and I suspect words might be had as to exactly what happened there. Let's just hope that it's all sensible. It looks as though it is. Body language suggests that, yeah, they might be disgruntled, but it's not too aggressive, is it? No,
I think Richard Hayes is done as well, isn't he? So he's about to jump out in the car, unfortunately, after that contact between the two of them, and you can see a bit of damage to the right front as well there, which has just gradually lifted the bonnet flap up as well, so that might be a little bit too dangerous to head back out, but I think Richard is maybe poised to go back out here, not too sure, but both of those will unfortunately lose places for the rest of this race. So on they go. Alex Taylor still your leader. He has stayed out of our vision, really, hasn't he? He's led this race from start to this point, and he now has an 11-second margin over Matt Spark, who was the man who qualified on the front row alongside him. So those two yet to be into the pit lane, and we've got around about 7 minutes or so before that pit window comes to a close. Yeah, that battle between Tom Barley and Roger Hamilton hasn't really changed too much as well. Is that the Toyota heading back out of the pits there? It was difficult. It looked like it, didn't it? So I couldn't quite see from that shot, but yeah, Tom Barley still in 4th place in the BMW. The red Ginetta right behind him, and is that the Toyota back out? Yes, it is. Yep, so back out and into the race has indeed gone. The Toyota in the hands of Richard Hayes, I think I said Roger Hayes, Richard Hayes. Also pit stop going on for a car that I'm surprised is out racing in modern classics and future classics, because it's at a bit of a disadvantage regardless of how good the drivers are. An 1800cc or 1950cc MGB is never going to quite have the pace of more modern machinery, but Paul Linfield handing over to Roland Watt, and I think the reason they're probably out, Matt, is they want to get racing, they want to race. We haven't got the swinging 60s series here this weekend, which that car will be more than eligible for, but they want to come out and race, and they know it's not going to be competitive in this field, but they're out there. Exactly, and the Classic Sports Car Club let them do that as well, which is great to see. A quite low car to the ground there. It's very tall drivers as well, so they've got a long way to go to get into that car, but the change now happening from Paul Linfield jumping out. Roland Watt will be the man who jumps into that car, and of course you carry on plodding round. You never know where you're going to finish with all the scrapes and skirmishes we've had so far, so on they push. And it will now be in the hands, as we said, of Roland Watt. And pretty much they'll do half the race each, because almost half the race has been completed. So that car very shortly to head back into the race, as the race leader now has headed into the pit lane. Yep, so Alex Taylor brings the 5-litre TVR Tuscan Challenge car in towards the pit lane, car which he hasn't owned for that long. I think he acquired it, was it the middle of last year or the year before, I think maybe. He's, of course, regularly raced a Mazda RX-7 in the Classic Sports Car Club for a good number of years, and has actually built another Mazda RX-7 over the course of the winter. That's the Ginetta that's in, one would guess. So that will be the car of Roger Hamilton, one would imagine. I can't imagine what it is other than a Ginetta, looking at the colour of the car and the shape of it. And then it will make its way back out onto circuit. It is a Ginetta, but it's not that Ginetta, it's Luke Plummer's car. So it's the number 16. So Luke Plummer heads out there. You can see the Marcos Manchula just ahead of it, minus the rear boot on that car. So with Alex Taylor having come into the pit lane, it means that this Porsche now, in the hands of Matt Spark, picks up the lead of the race. Yeah, it certainly does. So for the brief time that he's out there, Matt Spark will lead for a few laps before he decides to come into the pit lane. There is David Whelan in his number 9 Porsche. That car to be handed over shortly to Aidan Farrell as well. That's been another long-time runner within the Classic Sports Car Club, so great to see it back for another season. David Whelan pushing on hard as he goes now onto the Lewis Hamilton straight, and before the pit stops, running inside the top 10. So let's see if he can hold on to that one, although behind him, coming very quickly at the minute, is the Talbot Sunbeam Lotus of Jeff Beale here. So this fight is not quite over as they work their way up towards the right-hander of Village very shortly. And Jeff Beale's looking quite racy, actually. That gap has come down quite significantly over the course of this lap so far. So let's see if Jeff, onto the straights, probably won't have the power compared to the Porsche, but let's see if Jeff can give it a go to get past.
Yeah, of course. So Jeff Beale is running in the Future Classics section of the race, whereas David Whelan is running in the Modern Classics section of the race. So again, it's two races for the price of one, each with an entirely different class structure. And if you're wondering largely how it works, well, the Modern Classics is for saloons and hatchback sports and GTs up to the end of 1999. The Advantage Motorsport Future Classics deals with saloon sports and GT cars. They have to have doors from the 70s and the 1980s, so two different eras that we're looking at, each having their own race, but both on the grid, accommodated on one single race here at Silverstone this weekend. Matt Spark came in though, so he had taken over the lead of the race, following Alex Taylor bringing his TVR from the lead of the race into the pit lane. Well, now Matt Spark dives to the pit lane. The former Caterham racer is in at the wheel of the Martini liveried Porsche. Yep,
there's Richard Hayes, the man who had some damage on his right front, back out there. We'll see where he reslots into the order once everyone in front of him effectively has made their pit stop, but down the Wellington Straight he heads once more, and Richard Hayes at the minute is currently outside the top 10, so work to do to make up some ground once more. Matt Spark, as Mark said, is into the pit lane. Alex Taylor has served his pit stop, so he now carries on. And I think the number 99 machine could be in a good position here, couldn't it? Because Patrick Scharfiger now handing that car over to Steve Cunliffe could be either second or third. They are 34 seconds back from the race leader, Alex Taylor. All depends on how quick Matt Spark serves his pit stop here.
Yeah, so yeah, Patrick Scharfiger is not a slow guy. Steve Cunliffe I know less about, to be absolutely honest, as to Steve Cunliffe. The name doesn't even particularly ring a bell. So there's Matt Spark up on the air jacks. It comes down off the air jacks. The Martini liveried car, just, I think they've had a quick double check that everything is as it needs to be. Wait for the final countdowns to be done. Now the car can get rolling before the 90 seconds is up, because it's the beam at the end of the pit lane that's the important thing. So off he goes. Needs to stay within the pit lane speed limit and make sure that you exit the pit lane no sooner than 90 seconds after you entered it.
Once again, there is Chris Boone carrying on around the circuit. 13th place is where he started, so looking to make some progress through the field is Chris. He has already done his pit stop, so 20th place is where he currently finds himself, but looking to rejoin somewhere higher up inside the top 15 if he can. And as they work their way through. Now, the majority of the field have made their pit stop with 1 minute to go before it closes. I think there's only one that hasn't done so far, which is the car of 151 by the looks of it.
Yeah, Josh Smith. He's the only car that hasn't come in. It's certainly inside the top 30, Josh Smith. So he is sitting there in 18th position at the moment. But yeah, Roger Hamilton is in. We've got Darren Claydon in at the wheel of the Porsche. Andre Severs is in to hand over to Matthew Irons. The Koppocks are in, so that's Lawrence to hand over to Richard Koppock. And I think that is the vast majority of it. And the Yilmazes are in as well, aren't they? So that is going to be Martin Yilmaz ready to hand over to Gabriel Yilmaz. So that, I think, cycles through all of the pit stops bar one. We'll have to wait and see as to how things flush out at the moment, because Alex Taylor, last time through, after his slightly earlier pit stop, was there in third place, but he should, in theory, retake up the lead of the race, shouldn't he, this next time through?
Yeah, should do. There he goes. Alex Taylor just through the picture. You can hear the mighty sound of the TVR working it through for another time in towards the loop section of Silverstone, but he'll be charged hard here by Matt Spark, who is there in second place once again. So I'm just wondering, that gap might have come down during the pit stops there, so I think Matt Spark has done a good job to get things done within good time and get back out there without losing more time than what the race leader did on that occasion. So it could be a battle to resume out front, but Alex Taylor will know what he has to do and what he needs to do to make sure that gap extends once more as they head their way across the line. This is the Lotus, which we saw off down at Mackett's and Beckett's. That's recovered well. No more moments, hopefully, we've seen on screen, but doing well there to recover through the field with now just under 15 minutes to go.
Yeah, you could just see in the background of the shot there, Alex Taylor coming over the start-finish line, so he's going to have all of this traffic you can see on screen to catch up with again before too much longer. Down towards the bottom of the Hanger Straight, Hugh Gurney is looking to propel his E30 BMW through the corner. If he looks in his mirrors, he can see that the Coppox are there, which is the Jaguar XJS that Richard Coppock has only just taken over from father Lawrence Coppock. So again, everywhere you look, you've got cars that are either fighting for position or are looking to try and stay a lap ahead of other cars that are closing in. And I think Lawrence Coppock is very much focused on trying to catch up with Hugh Gurney, because if he can do so, I think that ultimately will be for position, because that Jag was in the pits last time through. And you've also got the other Jag, the XK8 of Chris Boone, not too far away. So the XJS, then the XJ8, all fighting their way through traffic at the moment. Traffic is going to be the Charlie Falkenbone Richardson Porsche, the red car with the martini stripes, straight way down through the centre of it. So still got just under 13.5 minutes of this race to go. Alex Taylor retakes the lead of the race from Max Sparks' Porsche to the tune of 15 seconds.
Good to see the different variations of Jaguars. I think there's a few Jaguar fans out there today. You've got the XJS out there of the Coppox, you've got the XK8, of course, the Chris Boone, which we've seen quite a lot of on screen, and also the S-Type of Paul Last. So yeah, 3 different varieties of Jaguar out there, which again brings the variety of modern classics to us for this weekend at Silverstone. But it's Alex Taylor who's doing the business so far in the TVR as he works his way through some more traffic just past the number 16 Ginetta of Luke Plummer as they head away again to the completion of what's going to be lap number 11 with 12.5 minutes left on the clock. And the gap now between him and Matt Spark has in fact stabilised around about 15 seconds. I think it was roughly about 11 seconds before they came into the pit lane. So not too much change between the top 2, and Patrick Scharfiger and Steve Cunniff still there in 3rd place, and I think they're now out in the question to challenge the top 2. Should be fairly comfortably in 3rd place, because the next car towards them is going to be the number 51 Richard Harmon machine. So the gap starting to spread out amongst the top 4 or so, but again, wherever we look down the field, there are going to be some close battles to look out for towards the conclusion of this one.
Yeah, not least of which I would say is Aidan Farrell, who's now taken over the Porsche 993 RSR from David Whelan. He's still got Jeff Beale breathing down the tailpipes of that car at the wheel of the Talbot Sunbeam Lotus, and that's cars fighting over 7th and 8th position. Not quite sure where they are on circuit at the moment, but they certainly came over the start-finish line locked together, as good as last time through. So we'll wait and see. So over the start-finish line, there's another car we've not really mentioned yet. The beautiful little BMW just heading through, the 202 Ti that James Palmer started. It's now been handed over to Simon Horrobin. We saw those two out sharing a Ford Fiesta in one of the races earlier on. Here is that fight that I was talking about. Jeff Beale looking to try and sneak up the inside of Aidan Farrell. Aidan Farrell just managing to close the door on the glorious-looking 993 RSR Cup car, having just taken over that car from the retired Army Major, David Whelan. But Jeff Beale driving solo in this car, pushing as hard as he possibly can, and Jeff certainly knows how to pedal that car now. He's been racing at Tolbeam Sunbeam Lotus for a very good number of years now, and has been a race winner in it in future classics in the past, not least of which, if memory serves me correctly, Anglesey last year. I think he managed to claim a victory, but he's pushing hard here. 2 cars in different races, because it's a modern classics Porsche, it's a future classics Talbot Sunbeam Lotus that sits behind. Yeah,
and that car of Jeff Beale is so short, isn't it? You can pretty much stick it anywhere. So Jeff trying to get the nimbleness of that Talbot Sunbeam Lotus through the corners, get it up the inside as best as he possibly can, but it will just lack a little bit of straight line speed compared to the Porsche of David Whelan. As I say that, he gets a great run on towards the start-finish line. Look at that spit of flame as well in the daylight fading here at Silverstone. A great backdrop to the flame-spitting Sunbeam Talbot Lotus. And again there, David Whelan had a good exit from Copse Corner, wanted to take that place back away from Jeff Beale, but on this occasion Jeff had the place covered. But now can he remain in this place for the next 10 minutes? It's going to be hard, but now that he's ahead, he might be able to defend a little bit harder compared to that of what David Whelan was doing.
Yeah, in a straight line, the Porsche should be able to outgun that Talbot Sunbeam Lotus, despite the fact that it's still pumping out some serious power from its twin-cam engine. They slide their way through and past the BMW without too much of a problem. The gap closes down towards the end of the straight, but Aidan Farrell is still too far away from Jeff Beale to do a great deal about it. So Jeff Beale hangs on to his newly acquired 7th place, The Porsche's still there in 8th place, but he almost runs wide and runs out of tarmac coming out of Stowe Corner, which allows Aidan Farrell to close alongside him coming in towards the Vale. But the far more nimble Talbot Sunbeam Lotus through the corners should be able to hang on to it. And I don't quite think that the Lewis Hamilton straight now that they're coming up to is going to be the place where the Porsche is going to try and brave it through and sneak up the inside.
Fairly even, aren't they, though, on the brakes as well? They kind of match each other down towards the braking zone. Jeff Beale still has the advantage over Aidan Farrell, so for now it's Talbot Sunbeam Lotus ahead, but we're coming up to the part of the circuit where Jeff Beale should have an advantage here. So this is where he needs to make progress and gain some ground to give him that little bit of an advantage as they head themselves onto the straights here. So he'll do all he can to build up the gap and hope that it's enough by the time they get towards the end of the straights. But it's going to be a tough last part of this race for Jeff Beale to hold on to this one. But we're enjoying watching them battle over 7th position as they work their way now down the Wellington Straight once again. How far back are they from Tom Barley? They are about 9 seconds. So I don't think they're going to catch up with the man up the road from them, but they would like to give it a go. But as it stands, Jeff Beale's main priority here is trying to keep ahead of the Porsche.
Yeah, they are lapping, or did lap quicker than Tom Barley did on his previous lap. So they were the 29.5s. Tom Barley was a 30.7, so they still closed by 1.2 seconds. Probably because they're pushing each other along rather than holding each other up at this stage. It's quite a fine balance, isn't it, when you're racing hard and actually pushing each other and you're all both going quicker, or whether you're squabbling too much and then holding each other up. Let's have a quick look that time through. Tom Barley was a 28.7. No, they were in the 29s that time through. So, sorry, no, Tom Barley did 29.8, and it was a 28.7 from the cars behind. So no, they are still closing. They're about a second quicker than Tom Barley. So the gap is coming down. It could be soon a fight for 6th, 7th and 8th.
Yeah, and that was a personal best, wasn't it, from Tom Barley as well. So it could be well and truly on here for them to catch. So Jeff Beale, now that he's through, that was the hard part that he was trying to get past Aidan Farrell. But now that he's through, he's just managed to pull a slight advantage. It's not a huge margin. It's nothing to be comfortable with. But let's see now if he can get his head down and try and close this gap on the man ahead of him, which is going to be for 6th position. Again, they're in different classes. Future Classics for Beale. It's the Modern Classics for Farrell and also for Tom Barley. So there's something for Aidan Farrell to go for here. It would just be for an overall position for Jeff Beale in his Sunbeam Talbot Lotus as they head their way down again in towards the Vale and Club part of the circuit. And again, the gap comes right down. So Aidan Farrell is not quite done, and he comes on to his favourite part of the circuit, a straight, which is ahead of him.
It's a little bit of elastic, isn't it, between the two cars? It stretches 1 minute, it closes up the next. There's more traffic to deal with, which I think is Les Conway's car. They're going to try Les Conway's car. They're going to sneak through, and Aidan Farrell was in two minds as to what to do there. You could see just the body language of the car. Do I go through? Do I not? He just prevaricated for a period of time, and that's just given Jeff Beale an extra couple of car lengths, which is exactly what he needs, because once they've gone through this bit here, the loop, they are flat out through Aintree and all the way down the Wellington Straight up towards Brooklands, and that's where the Porsche will come back into its own again. But that was a good exit out of the loop from Aidan Farrell. I don't think he's going to be that far away again by the time they get up towards the braking area for Brooklands. Leading the race overall is Alex Taylor. He leads the Modern Classics part of the race, and leading the Advantage Motorsport Future Classics part of the race. We've not seen a lot of him in part 2 of the race. It's the number 51 Porsche 944 Turbo of Richard Harman, who's there in 4th.
Wasn't quite enough for Aidan Farrell. He's got a lot closer though, but again it's through the corners where Jeff Beale should be able to hold on to it as Farrell takes the wider line through the corner to try and get again that slingshot off through Luffield and up towards Woodcote, and it gets longer now. The straights that Aidan Farrell will have to deal with are to his advantage, so here he should have a good run down on towards the Hanger Straight. If he's not through by the end of Copse Corner, might be able to have another go if he's close enough. But Jeff Beale again just doing enough, isn't he, to throw this car into the corner as safe as possible and keep that gap. So this is a tremendous battle between the two of them. And in terms of the gap between them and Tom Barley, has come down again, not by a huge amount, by about a second, but it's now what's going to be 7 seconds between that and Tom Barley. So it's still on, although time is continuing to tick away here. 5 minutes left on the clock. Alex Taylor very shortly up towards the line, so he's going to have possibly 3 more laps, might only be 2. It depends how quick he gets there, but Jeff Beale, I think safe this time onto the hanger straight. No challenge from what's going to be Aidan Farrell down towards the end of it.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. They're not quite going to get to Tom Barley in time, unfortunately. New fastest lap of the race for Alex Taylor, very late on, but as he thunders his way over the start-finish line, 2 minutes 21.719 from Alex Taylor is the fastest lap of the race that we've had so far. This little squabble that we've been concentrating on for what is 7th and 8th position just heads in towards the Vale and Club at this stage, with Jeff Beale still having to work overtime, still trying to propel this, what I think is Phil Seaman tuned Talbot Sunbeam Lotus round through the corners as much as possible. If you've got a Talbot Sunbeam Lotus and you want somebody to set it up for you, Phil Seaman is largely the man that most people go to, and I'm sure I've seen Phil tinkering on this car more than once in the past, and that's why Jeff Beale, now that it is very much a comfortable pair of slippers for him, he's been racing for a good few years now, he is able to get the very most out of this car that he possibly can. Used to drive and share the car with Will Arif, his sort of pro driver, but he got to the stage where he was quick enough then, didn't need any help, and he has, say, claimed wins in the past, but again, slightly slower coming out of the loop up towards Aintree, offers up a glimmer of hope for Aidan Farrell as they come down the straight. But we now are going to head back to look at some of the other battles that are just coming over the Lewis-Hamilton straight at the moment and up towards the wing.
Yep, certainly are. This is a little bit further back in the race at the minute. As we said, with not too much to go within this race. The 151 machine we just caught there of Josh Smith, but we turn our attention away from this fight just briefly and it gets even closer. So Aidan Farrell again, still charging hard over the back of Jeff Beale, but it's kind of very repetitive now, isn't it? We kind of see this lap after lap and it's getting him closer to the back of Jeff Beale, but not quite enough to get himself back ahead after the place was lost around about 5 or 6 laps to go now. So he'll continue to sit there. We've got a few penalties also arriving on our screen as well. One of those being for the 173 machine. So that is Matt Spark, who was exceeding the speed in the pit lanes for a 60-second penalty for our second place man. So Matt Spark, not good news for him at all. Although saying that, he is 57 seconds up the road from the Steve Cunniff and Patrick Sharford car, so he might not lose that many places, but he will lose seconds.
Depends how much quicker he can go, because he was about 3 seconds quicker than that car last time through, so by the end of the next lap he might just have 60 seconds in hand and wouldn't lose a place.
No, it's going to be close, isn't it? We'll keep an eye on that. And also the 82 machine has received a 5-second penalty for track limits as well, so that car I think outside the top 30.
That's the Ben Cater car, that's the Toyota MR2. Ben Cater and Malcolm Scott I think sharing that car.
Yeah, so that's received it for track limits, so not as big a penalty, but penalty nonetheless.
So traffic to be dealt with by Jeff Beale, who decisively squeezed his way through and past the back marker. Aidan Farrell follows him through and even has the time to thank the back marker for getting out of the way by the look of things, so very gentlemanly driving. And now you can see, whilst they've been closing, they're almost now up into contention to fight for what is 6th place, because Tom Barley at the wheel of the number 84 BMW is bottled up for the moment behind the Marcus Manchula of Matthew Lewis, and he needs to get past this car because he will want to make sure he can hang on to 6th place. The Marcos is a lap adrift of them, and he has all of the time got the 7th and the 8th place cars closing up with less than a minute and a half to go.
And Jeff Beale on that previous lap did his best lap of the race, 2:28.1, so nearly 2 seconds quicker. The gap was 5.3 seconds. Already it's down to about 2 seconds by the looks of it, so this is a great run for Jeff Beale. Once he got past Aidan Farrell, the door was unlocked to try and make up more places, and also that time on Tom Barley. He's going to have this lap and also one more, I reckon. It's going to be close again for Alex Taylor. The lap times he's been doing, he might scrape through for another one, but we'll keep an eye on the clock and where he is. But for the time being, it's now a 3-way fight for what's going to be 6th, 7th and 8th place, and Tom Barley has definitely been caught now by Jeff Beale.
He has, yeah. You got the interloping Marcos Manchula of Matthew Lewis in there as well. That car runs down in 27th position at the moment, so really needs to get out of harm's way as Jeff Beale looks to try and attack Tom Barley for 6th place. The BMW sweeps decisively across the nose of the Tallbeam Sunbeam Lotus, and that means that the order remains as is for the moment. But has Jeff Beale got more momentum as they head up towards Maggots? Yes, he has. He goes through and ahead of Tom Barley. So Jeff Beale now up into 6th position. Tom Barley down into 7th, and already, I think, looking to try and turn the screw and see whether he can get a bit more momentum out of the Beamer. Having just lost 1 place, he wants to try and instantly get it back. So out of Chapel Curve On towards the hangar straight they will go. Great fight now for 6th, for 7th, and well, not quite for 8th, because Aidan Farrell wasn't quite with them at the start of the straight, but he's with them and passed by the end of it. So Tom Barley going off the boil a bit here, isn't he?
Yeah, it's all come undone on the last few laps, but he fights back. He chucks that BMW back to the inside of Aidan Farrell, and he gets the place back into 7th position he goes. So he wasn't going to lay down without a fight there. They've got the traffic to deal with as well, so this is all going to play a part as they head their way back down in towards Vale and Club Corner. And for now, Tom Barley is just about hanging on by his fingernails, but it's a very, very close fight. And now that Jeff Beale is through, I think he should be done and gone, shouldn't he? Because he's up the road. He's going to leave Aidan Farrell to try and battle with Tom Barley as much as he can. That will help him towards the end of this race and try and build enough of a buffer not to be challenged in the closing stages, which we are now into, because Alex Taylor scraped across the line there, I think, with about 9 seconds on the clock. So he's on his last lap. We've still got a lot more to look forward to with this battle for 6th place. Yeah,
Alex Taylor just heading past the wing, so he's the best part of halfway around his final lap of the race. Aidan Farrell trying to unlock the door, sneaks up the inside of the BMW of Tom Barley as they head through the loop, and has more momentum as they come onto the Wellington Straight, so should now be able to confirm himself by the end of the Wellington Straight, and Brooklands up into 7th position, and the BMW, I'm afraid, will have lost a further place. But for Alex Taylor, he is for the final time just working his way through Village Corner and up towards the left-hander at the loop. So all he's got left to do now is propel the car along the Wellington Straight and up towards Brooklands and Luffield, and he'll be on for the win. But for this squabble that we've got for 6th, 7th and 8th, they've still got another lap to do.
Certainly have, and Aidan Farrell is still not done, is he? Because he's got back onto terms with Jeff Beale here, so that one is going to go the conclusion as they head up towards the line to start their last lap, and about 30 seconds adrift from them, less than that maybe now, is Alex Taylor, because he's working his way through Brooklands in towards Luffield for the final time. He's got all the stickers that he collected last year, all the race wins that he's had across the course of the Classic Sports Car Club. He's going to add another one to that as well, because Alex Taylor in the TVR has done the job today here at Silverstone in another dominant performance in that car. Lights ablaze as he crosses the line, and he picks up the win in what's going to be the modern classics here at Silverstone. So a wonderful job from Alex Taylor. He's going to win again by a substantial margin over the rest of the field.
Yeah, it was a brilliant win for Alex Taylor, but there's still squabbles to be resolved out there, not least of which is Jeff Beale and Aidan Farrell. Now, always seems as though Jeff Beale has just about had enough in hand between himself and Aidan Farrell, and every time Aidan's got close, Jeff has just been able to either position the car appropriately, or there's a twiddly part coming up which is always going to favour his car over the more powerful Porsche. So I think the order will remain the same, but any small slip up at all, whether it be a locked brake, missed apex, or maybe tripping over a back marker, because there might be one or two of those before we get towards the checkered flag, and we could still see that order shuffle out of club along the Lewis Hamilton Straight. They've worked their way past what is Graham Smith in his Mazda MX-5, who, as ever, being a hugely experienced driver, was well aware that they were coming up and indicated decisively where he wanted them to go. He doesn't want to get involved in a squabble, but Jeff Beale has got his work cut out. He's going to know he's had a busy race here.
Yeah, I think he's going to chuck everything bar the kitchen sink for this place over Jeff Beale. It's going to be a close run thing towards the checker flag, which of course has been taken now by the top two, because Matt Spark has also gone through, and Aidan Farrell gets to the inside line through the loop. So Aidan Farrell gets through as they head onto the Wellington Straight. It now favours the Porsche down the straight, but what happens at the end of it through Brooklands, we're about to find out, because Jeff Beale is going to surely try and fight back for this position for what's going to be 6th place. But who's going to come out in the battle ahead on this occasion? There's traffic to deal with as well. This could play a part as they work their way in towards Luffield. Very wide there from Aidan Farrell. The door is left open. There's another Porsche to try and work their way through. The Porsche then gets the advantage round the outside. Jeff Beale gets the acceleration. It's going to be another drag race to the line, but Aidan Farrell on the last lap gets the job done.
Brilliant stuff from Aidan Farrell. I really didn't think he was going to get there, but as ever, as the saying goes, you until the checkered flag falls, it's not a saying, I've just made it up, until you get to the checkered flag, nothing is decided. So yeah, brilliant stuff from Aidan Farrell. So he just pips Jeff Beale, who finishes 6th and will still finish as the second of the cars in the future classics, for which again I think there's the driver of the day that needs to be decided in future classics, Matt.
Okay, yeah, we'll put that one together and send it up to the team at Classic Sports Car Club. So it was a fantastic race then. We could see the delight on Aidan Farrell Farrell's facer as he crossed the line, came down towards Copse Corner and took the plaudits for that battle with Jeff Beale. So a tantalising battle between the two of them for the majority of the last 15 minutes, which was fantastic to watch. So hopefully you enjoyed that one. There are a few penalties to add on there, as we said. The 82 car received the 5-second penalty, and Matt Spark also received his 60-second penalty, but in the end it didn't move him from where he actually was on the circuit. So all in all, good stuff there for Matt Spark. In terms of the result, though, for the Modern Classics and Advantage Motorsport Future Classics, there's a win for Alex Taylor in the TVR Tuscan. He wins by nearly 2 minutes over Matt Spark in the Porsche. Third place goes the way of Richard Harmon, and then behind that we had Roger Hamilton for fourth place. The delights of Aidan Farrell and Dave Whelan to pick up fifth place ahead of Jeff Beale in the Talbot Sunbeam Lotus for sixth. Tom Barley brought the BMW home in seventh place ahead of the Patrick Scharfiger and Steve Cunniff, number 99 machine. Darren Claydon was ninth ahead of Richard Hayes. Hugh Gurney finished in 11th ahead of Chris Boone in his yellow and blue Jaguar. Ray Barrow in the Chevrolet Camaro finished in 13th place, and Stuart Jeffcoat in his Porsche came home in 14th position. David Sharp next up in 15th position ahead of Luke Plummer. It was the Richardson and Falk car in 17th place ahead of the Cobox Jaguar in 18th position. The Palmer and Horrobin car in 19th ahead of the mighty BMW in the hands of both Matthew Irons in his last season and Jake Severs in 20th place. The Harvey and Morris machine in 21st place. Further back from them we had the Yilmaz 22nd, the Charters and Westbrook 23rd, Richardson's in 24th, and then further back from them we see outside the top 28 Alan Drain, Ben Cater and Josh Smith. Colin Claxton was a couple of laps down in 31st place, ahead of Pruden and McKinley, Narron and Coulson, Les Conway in 34th, and Linfield and Watt in 35th, with the rest unfortunately suffering some problems with mechanicals and early drummers on the first laps of that race. But again, a good, healthy number of the cars making it home for the first race of the year in the Modern Classics and Advantage Motorsport Future Classics here at Silverstone. Conditions still good, still a bit chilly, but we've still got one race to look forward to here for the opening meeting of the year, the winter warm-up from the Classic Sports Car Club, the Liqui Moly Slick Series coming up very shortly. But first, once again, we'll head back out into the cold with Mark Werrell.
Well, back down in the pit lane again, we've got our penultimate race winner of the weekend here at Silverstone. A win overall in the Modern Classics, Alex Taylor. Alex, we didn't quite see what happened at the start. Looks like there was a little bit of contact somewhere along the way, because we can see the damage to the tail of your car.
Yeah, it seems the tail of my car is quite popular this weekend. We had a little moment with my friend here who's done very well to come in second there in qualifying, and for some reason our best mate Tony Blake got attracted to it as well. I don't know, it's got some like pheromones on the back of it or something, but yeah, fortunately we were able to carry on, and since the back was already trashed from quali, it's not a disaster for us. I'm just really sad to hear that Tony had to retire.
After, you know, that incident at first corner, it's just a case of head down and try and build that advantage?
Yeah, you're kind of feeling out the car to check everything's okay. And yeah, then letting the tyres come on and just, I mean, look, it's a beautiful sunny day. It's Silverstone GP. This guy was really quick, but I was able to get past him and then start gapping. I was just having a great time in a lovely car.
Rest of the season, we'll see you out, not just in this, I guess, the TVR, but you'll also be out in the old Mazda and the new Mazda that's been built up as well, the new RX-7.
Yeah, the old favourite, the old Mazda, the Turbo Mazda is going to be back on the scene sometime this year. And my dad's put in a huge amount of work over the last 2 years to prepare a tribute to the 1981 BSCC championship winning Win Percy Mazda RX-7. And it's beautiful, we're really excited about it, so hopeful of maybe at some point this year getting some results with that.
Well, you got a result with this one today, well done.
Cheers, Mark, thank you.
There we go, so there's Alex Taylor, our winner of the Modern Classics part of the race. I'm also going to grab a quick word, if I can, with Matt Spark, who finished in second place. Matt, a busy old race there, and a race in which you had to overcome, you might not have been aware, a time penalty. You were given a 60-second penalty for an infringement, and thankfully you were 60 seconds ahead of the car behind.
That happens sometimes, doesn't it? I've got no idea about that, so yeah, just carried on doing my thing. Had a misfire. Before the race, we changed the plugs and the coil packs, but it didn't. It sold it for half a lap, and then it came back. So I was running around on 5 cylinders for the race. So I knew I was capable of 222s. I was only, I think, 226, 227s. I'd have liked to have given Alex a bit more of a run for his money there, actually. So it's a bit of a shame about that.
It's a bit of work to do for the team, is it? You're supposed to be out in the next race, weren't you, the Slick Series?
No, the sister car's out in that one, but this one's not. That's it for today, so we'll have to try and get to the bottom of what's going on with that.
How does this compare to what we've seen you out driving in the past? Because we've seen you out in Caterhams, haven't we, in the past?
Yeah, I've done some stuff in the past with CSCC and a C400, like 265 brake horsepower thing, and then I went to a 420R. I raced in another series in that, and but I just fancied getting a bit more his sort of modern classic kind of thing. This is glorious to drive. It's so well balanced and normally so reliable. And today we just had a few issues. The grip's really good from these tyres as well. These Yokohama AO1s, AR1s I think they are, and yeah, just they stuck in there. So we get it back on 6 cylinders. I'd like to chase this fella down, you know.
He'll be watching in his mirrors, you can guarantee it.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you very much. And let's wander down and grab a quick word with Tony Harmon, who was the first of the drivers home in the Future Classics, the Advantage Motorsport Future Classics section of the race. Tony, how was it out there?
Sorry, it's Richard, but yeah.
Sorry, Richard.
That's okay. Yeah, great, actually. I mean, it was a bit of a solo race, lonely race towards the end there, because I was kind of on my own on the circuit, but had the Ginetta in my mirrors for a while. I think it was in 4th, so kind of pulled my socks up a bit and got on with it. Changed the setup on the car a bit this time out, new tyres, and I didn't quite feel comfortable with it. There's a bit of work to be done there, but 3rd on the road, so happy.
Pleased with that 3rd on the road. And Richard, is there more work to be done back in the workshop ahead of Snetterton? Are we going to see you out at Snetterton for the next round?
Well, there's always more work to be done, isn't there? Yeah, a few tweaks here and there. I think, just trying to get the best out of the car. I'm happy with it. The car's great. It is going well, but obviously you just want to extract a bit more lap time from it. Still a bit oversteery at the moment, so just got to dial that out. But yeah, absolutely, we'll be at Snetterton.
Bit more time out of the car. Any more time out of the driver?
We'll see. There always is. It's the meat behind the wheel that's the challenges with. So yeah, no, absolutely.
Well done in winning Advantage Motorsport Future Classics.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.